cause everything around me green. Get the money, dollar bill, yo.
So I'm going to give you guys a warning that this one is going to be a little short this time just because I am super pressed. I've got travel coming at the end of this week and we are working harder than you guys can imagine on trying to get this milestone done and out to you. Do you want to do a quick update on how things are coming with 110?
510 is definitely coming. We're coming through the tunnel.
It is. So I think we finally have turned the corner. So there's a general process, right, where people have to finish all their stuff. Then you find a hell of a lot of bugs. Then people every day are turning their attention away from finishing things to fixing those bugs.
Right.
For a while, you get more bugs found every day than you get fixed every day. That's just kind of the normal way it works. And then you hit a breaking point where all of a sudden your fix rate is equal to your find rate. And then you know you're on the other side and you're really getting close because you're fixing more than you're finding every day.
Right.
We are right almost to that point. I think like on a day-for-day basis now, it's like some days we find more, some days we fix more. It's more find than fix, but we either have just turned the corner in the last few days, we're about to.
And we're also at the phase where like Todd and I will go through and be like, this really doesn't work.
Yeah,
right?
that's unfortunate, but
just at the scratch and sniff level, it's like...
sure you guys can imagine that.
Yeah, there's like, we need another UI here, or we need a slight tweak here, or hey, Blair, can all the walls come up at one time rather than individually, and that takes a week, but that is all finishing as well.
So historically, and this I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what's happening, but don't hold me to it because I don't know, is usually what happens is after we hit that turning point, the amount of time between then and launch is weeks, not months. Yeah. And in fact, it kind of matches a general pattern of a week-ish to a week and a half per month of development on the milestone. So we'll see where it falls, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. And that does mean that we'll, in that process at some point, we will push things out to the test server, which is really cool too. That'll give you guys a good first look at some of these things, even though it won't be a complete game experience because it's on the test server. So, so there you go.
And again, it's really cool to see all the stuff come together. Mm-hmm. You gotta love this phase because you're like, that is kind of like you look at like, hey, this is a doc I wrote 6 months ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And you actually see it in game, and you're like, hey, it's pretty close. Yeah. And you're like, and that's how that piece worked.
Yeah, so we've been remiss. Some of the times you guys kick us questions about individual things, and is this in, and is that in, and stuff like that. I've been really reluctant to answer those individually, because what I really want to do is present the entire thing, right? If I present you a meal, and you taste it, and you're like, hey, this is actually a really good meal. Now let's talk about the things that could be better. That's a better approach than me coming and going, let me just talk about each individual ingredient that we're going to put in this meal, because then you guys are going to pick and choose and argue about what the ingredients are, and ultimately you and we don't really know how it holds together. I mean, we have an idea, but we'll find out once it goes to the test server. So I didn't really want to get into that, so that's why I've been very resistant to talking about the individual pieces. I think that overall, though, you guys are going to be really happy with what we did.
Yeah.
The tent poles of guild versus guild, city building, and the alternate means, the strategy game alternate means of winning, which includes, of course, caravans. I think that you guys are going to overall be really impressed. Your individual pet feature of, but I really wanted this, some of those didn't quite make the cut. Some of those will get in by launch, and some of those will get in right after launch.
And the look of it, too.
After that. You know?
Right, I sent up that screenshot yesterday. Of one of the new things that got a UI
update.
That
looked great.
And it's like, wow, it's just night and day difference from what you see on live right now. And it just starts to all feel like a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And you're just like, oh my God.
It's funny, actually, because those tent poles that I just mentioned, right? Those are so big and so impactful that they're going to take all of the attention. Like they're the things that are going to get the spotlight. And that means that there are things that are going into this build that are minor bullet points that in past builds would have been the tent pole.
Right.
You know, like refineries. We've mentioned that one in the past, right? I can go and I can get stone or timber or ore, and instead I can use it to build up my city, or alternatively now I can take it to a refinery and break it into a stack of greens or whatever.
Or whatever the quality of it is.
Yeah, so that's really, really cool, and in the past would have been a super popular feature that you guys would have been all over. In this one, it's like it's a thing. Yeah, we do that too.
It's a line item. Refineries are in.
Yeah, so you guys are going to really dig it. All right, do you want to go and take some Q&A questions?
Sure, absolutely. What do we got first? Okay, so last month we talked about the removal of the survival tray.
Yep.
Right,
that's
and one of the things we didn't talk about...
Another minor bullet point that
Right.
in the past would have been earth-shaking, but yes.
And there was a lot of forum questions over the past month on how does the in and out of combat hate list work?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's
Yeah.
ultimately what we've gone to instead of the player manually selecting a tray, right? Before this, you basically selected it by swapping between your trays.
Yep.
Technically, on the back end, the survival tray was out of combat, and all the other trays were in combat.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So now we're doing all of that to make it feel way seamless and a lot of reasons.
And overall, I will say, having played it now, it just feels so much better.
It does.
It does. Now, immediately, of course, there were a whole bunch of questions about the dangling bits. Well, what does this mean for stealth? And what does this mean for harvesting? And what does this mean for this, that, and the other? We've tried to go through and address all of those the best we can, but I'm sure we also will have missed a few, right?
Yeah.
It's a foundational change to the game. This is why we have not launched the game, is we're still in testing. So I hope that we got at least 80 or 90% of those things answered. The few that we missed, be patient with us. We will fix them. We'll get right on them because that's exactly. I mean, we know that we aren't going to have caught everything.
Yeah, and
that's where you guys come in because you're so awesome. You
they'll
are
find
an
it, right?
army, like a swarm of locusts going and eating all the meat off the bones, right? You will find all of these problems, and then once we find them, we can fix them.
What's funny is when you say locust eating all the meat off the bone, we've put up a couple screenshots in the last couple of weeks of like a banner.
Yep.
And like I think for today's, in fact, even there's a banner up there with the new map.
Yeah. I saw that.
And they're already
immediately,
stripping all of the information out of it.
Right.
And it's stuff that like there's a little outpost in there, simple outpost. And it's like, oh, there's outpost types that have the gods in them now?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, whoop. Yep.
Right?
See, that is true. So you number one, we can't sneak it past you. Number two, though, is there's just so much coming in this build that I actually forget. Because it's been a while, right? To me, that's old news. I'm like, well, of course, weren't those in the last? Oh, I guess they weren't. So,
yeah. Anyways, back to the question. So the question is specifically how do the combat hate lists work? And so in this case, you are in combat whenever you're on the hate list of an NPC. So if an NPC is pissed at you and it's alive,
and it's near you, like
and it's
not
near
across the world.
Correct.
Right? It has to be.
If you go out, you all know how the tethering mechanics works. If you go too far away from its home point, it will reset. When it does that, it's going to drop you off of the hate list. Or if you kill it, you instantly drop out of combat.
Okay.
Whenever you've been hit by another player, you are in combat for 10 seconds. If you don't do any hostile actions and don't get hit again, then you fall out of combat. Okay. Whenever you activate a power, when you're just running around and you just left click or you hit one of your tray powers, you will get put into combat for the duration of that animation. And then you'll fall out a second or two after
If you didn't hit a target.
If you didn't hit a target,
Yeah.
which at that point means I didn't get put on an NPC's hate list and or I didn't hit another player.
Right.
So you accidentally hit a button, you go in for a second to do the animation because that's how animations work.
Yep.
And then when it's over, you come right back out of combat. And someone had also asked, what are the different things that happen when I'm in combat? There are in combat and out of combat health regeneration rates. Because we want things to be a little faster when you're out of combat to recover, but we don't want it so fast that it would skew combat, right? So in combat, you stop regenerating for the classes that have resource pool usually, as well as health specifically, right? And in stealth, in order to go in stealth, you have to be out of combat and not have an active dot ticking on you. Because the first time that dot ticks, you're going to take damage and then get popped.
You've been hit again.
And it means it pops you out of stealth. So that's kind of the big umbrella rules.
Do we cover, so what does this mean for knockdown and dizzy down and stuff like that?
So dizzy down is gone.
Okay. I think there will be much rejoicing on that, actually.
Yeah. If you get hit and you're out of combat, you just get put into combat.
Okay.
Right? So that's pretty simple, right? It's, I got hit. Somebody hit me within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I follow the global rule of I'm in combat now. So just getting hit puts you into combat. And then we're dizzy down. And the other question I think that came up was related to this sphere was, how do you guys know whether it's a player or a resource? Right, because that was a big issue. Was if you're standing there and there's a tree right here.
Oh yeah. Targeting is if targeting is not quite exact, right? If it's like it doesn't know. And our answer was, if you can attack the target, assuming you're trying to attack the target. Like
Correct.
generally speaking, we're just going to default to, if there's a valid target, assume that I'm trying to kill that person, not I'm trying to harvest the tree next to that guy who I'm PvP, who I could engage with PvP. Now, if it's a friendly, that won't be the case, right? But if it's a enemy, if it's somebody that I can attack, we're just going to make the bold assumption with our players that they are trying to kill people if there are people nearby to be killed first.
Right.
So,
and a follow-up to that, if you're in combat, you can't harvest.
yeah.
Right? So that will prevent somebody from dodging around resource nodes to try and use the resource nodes as cover.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. Okay. You're in combat, you're going to swing your sword or whatever weapon you have and not actually pull out the pick and try and harvest the pick. So for us, we've played it pretty extensively at this point, and it seems to work great.
There was another interesting point about this, which is that the camera actually changed. And this was a fear of mine. Going into it, I was very nervous because combat camera is not the same as out of combat camera. Previously, when we had survival tray, going between the two, right, there was a distinct like sheathing and unsheathing.
Correct.
And at that point, if I were to hit reverse on my character, it actually had a different behavior, right? In one of them, in combat, I'm always behind the character. Whereas in out of combat, my character could actually turn around and run towards me. So it's actually, and what's interesting, I was very nervous that kind of, freely moving and the player back and forth between these two and automating that process, that was going to cause massive problems with the player going, wait, what the hell just happened?
Right.
As it turns out, that is not an issue. It is seamless, and the human brain,
our brain just does magic.
Naturally adapts to it and gets it to the point where when I would ask people, hey, what did you think about that? Everyone, or not everybody, but most people who weren't like design focused, just like grab a random person and say, what do you think about this? And their response was, oh, I didn't notice. I didn't notice that. So that's great. If we can actually make it work the way we want to work, but at the same time make it so seamless that they don't notice that it's a thing, that's like perfect.
That means we did our job, right? That means that we actually got it right when you just don't feel it. And if I have to bring it up to you, you're like, oh yeah, there is UI there or whatever. That's usually when you've nailed the system.
So I can only imagine that the chat is full of questions that we didn't cover related to this, because this is an area, I'm sure, of high debate and consternation. So do you want to take a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually,
No?
Oh, great.
Well, there's one on mounted, so they're asking if you're mounted and you take a hit, are you going to drop off your mount?
So if you're mounted and you're running around the world and you get hit, there's a chance that you will get dismounted. Every time you get hit in a short duration, it increases that chance.
Right.
So if you get hit twice in quick succession, it's probably going to knock you off. If you get hit once, it may or may not knock you off. There's a little bit of chance going on there.
That's cool.
So by the time you get hit 4 or 5 times within that threshold, you are getting knocked off.
That's interesting. So I hadn't seen that change to the design. I actually like it. I think that's a good idea. It also makes me want to get a ability like on a Cavalier discipline to make that chance go down. So you're actually less likely. That would be pretty cool.
I did build
it. That's cool. That's great.
Right. Yay. So if somebody opens on you with a rapid fire and hits you with 4 or 5 shots really quick, you're getting knocked off.
That's actually really cool. That's now a benefit to rapid fire, which is really neat. I like that.
Creme de la Creme said, rapid fire demounting meta, go.
Love it. Actually, that's really cool. I'm excited about all that, Blair. You've done your work today.
Hey, I'm out. Leave on a high note.
I can't kill you today, Mr. Blair.
Always leave on a high note. I'll see you guys next week.
Fruit wants to know if you will tell them, where'd it go? What the chance is, because you said there's a chance of it. Would you tell math?
No math.
No math.
No math.
Nope.
No math.
Yay.
Debbie Sue gets mad when we talk math.
Is excited.
Well, I will say that I hate changing math because inevitably I hate talking about the math because inevitably it causes people to get upset, and we change it all the time. Like the math is in a constant state of change. So I don't like answering questions that lead to people getting upset that ultimately was a complete waste of effort.
Sure.
Because not only does it make them upset, which I don't want to do, but then that bleeds back on us and we have to deal with it, and that sucks for us too. So that's why I avoid it. I avoid talking about things that are highly likely to be a whole bunch of wasted negativity. I want you to put your negativity where it belongs, which is on things that are actually not going to change. Plate proficiency trait.
Yes.
This was not a question. until it became a question because we put out a screenshot, right? And the screenshot was not intending to actually really have anything to do with the inventory. It just happened to be up at the time, I think. Isn't that right? What was the screenshot about?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Oh, well, then it had to be up. But so anyway, so now we're going to talk about it, I suppose.
Yes, now we're going to talk about it. So, are there any classes that receive the plate proficiency trait by default? And the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, you have to promote in.
You have to promote in. We have 11 specialization or promotion classes that have the plate proficiency
out
trait.
Of 33?
Yes, out of 33.
Yes.
So roughly a third of our classes can wear plate. And it was a great tool for us because it gave us a way to say this promotion class is squishier, but they deal more damage.
Yeah.
In what you guys have been playing, we've kind of had the knobs all cranked up and not so worried so much about kind of gross balance, for more or less to speak, right? So everybody can pretty much do everything. Everyone's got their crit max, so we didn't have classes that felt very critty, right? And classes that felt squishy. So we're trying to change that as part of 110. We're putting pieces in place so that you'll be like, yeah, those guys are very critty, and that's what their build is built around. Or they're the anti-crit build, or they're the durable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We kind of, where we're at right now, everybody can kind of bleed into everything, right? So that's kind of part of our goals going forward, is to kind of make the characters definitely feel different at the final promotion.
Well, and we still are waiting on a couple pieces that we need, right, for disciplines and things like that. Like the discipline trees is just something we still don't have.
Right.
But there, to me, I like hard choices where at this point I can either continue to specialize, or I can I can dabble a little bit over here, like class dipping or feats in 5e. I can pick up some of that. I'm sacrificing some of my potential on the primary track, but I'm picking up. I like that. I think that's right the way to go. That doesn't mean though swinging to the other side of the fence, which is or the other side of the spectrum, where it's like everybody is all of the things.
Right.
I don't want that. Right. I want them to be choices, but hard choices.
And prior to this, in the past, the equipment was based on your class, right? And and we've gone to a trait-based system now where you actually have to have the trait. And some of these classes had, for example, a knight had plate, but to go into the Sentinel promotion, we were taking away their plate, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right,
yeah,
right. Which is why we now start them all in male, and if you promote into Secutor, you get the plate.
Got it.
Right. So
cool.
We flip that around so it feels better. It feels
does
like a
definitely
reward.
Feel better. It feels like you gave me something.
Right. Rather than I
opposed to
took
you
something away.
So, and actually in the traits, we've talked about the traits a little bit.
I think we showed it last time. Yeah.
And did we actually show a screenshot of it? I think we might have.
I think we might have.
But anyway, that's really helpful now as well. So now we actually have another tab on the UI that you can click on that will show you the traits that you have.
And we're granting traits now, like via skills.
Yeah, that's neat.
For example, Careless Whisper is now locked to a skill node. I think it's the Combat Mastery node. So when you get there, you get a juicy trait that unlocks a cool discipline, and you're like, wow, this feels great.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool.
So that part is all coming together.
All right.
All right.
So the actual question was, what classes receive the plate proficiency trait by default? And you got that.
No.
Yeah. So, but how many of them have a promotion class that offers it, that offers plate proficiency?
Well, there's 11 promotions. Some of them get two. Some of them get one.
Do all of the but there is a promotion for every class, at least one promotion for every class that they can get plate.
Ranger doesn't get it, for example. They top out at male. The leather classes typically topped out at male.
Okay.
The classes that start with male typically top out at plate.
Got it. So that is an opportunity, in my opinion, to go back and look at that in light of disciplines. And if we can make a hard choice where it's like, wow, this discipline is expensive, even though I normally wouldn't have this, I can take it like Heavy Armor Mastery or Heavy Armor Proficiency.
We tried that in the past, and the problem was it was too cheap.
Yeah.
So
so it made it not a hard choice.
It was not a hard choice
at
all. Right.
So cool.
There you go.
All right.
So Galvia asked, while we're talking about passive training and stuff, do you need to have passive training to unlock disciplines? I don't understand that question.
No, they're built into the trees now, correct?
Okay.
Oh, you mean the slots?
Yes, the discipline slots.
There are no discipline slots in the skill trees. However, the skill trees may have a trait that
can unlock certain disciplines.
Disciplines.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so he did clarify a little bit. Can we get a clarification that you may need to unlock certain nodes in passive training to make use of disciplines like Careless Whisper.
Yes,
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 yes.
Okay.
absolutely.
Make sure
Yeah,
everybody's
that's the
speaking
combat
same
mastery kind of capstone. Really cool. Here's a bunch of cool stuff we give you for training everything in this tree.
Cool. All right.
All right, next question.
Next, do harvesting disciplines require slotting harvestable powers on the power bar?
Yes, they do. They are a power like every other power. Thankfully, there isn't a slew of them that you could load out at the same time. So it does mean that you would sacrifice a combat slot, but you can put them in either your melee tray or your range tree.
Right. And the harvesting mini game that we do with the pips and stuff like that, that has been now moved out to advanced gameplay.
Correct.
You have to invest to be able to get that.
Correct. There are disciplines that unlock the that will make those pips even show up.
Yep.
Generally, if a discipline came with a power that requires harvesting pips to activate, we give you the little widget so you know how many pips you're at.
Yep.
And then the ultimate power, energetic harvesting is what it's called, is actually unlocked by exploration mastery node. So we have powers that are also granted in the skill tree. So you're going to start feeling powers and traits coming from the skill tree just to reinforce that.
And we did pull consumables out of the power bar and gave them their own spot to live.
Correct.
So
Yeah, they live in the alt 1, 2, 3 slots.
yeah, which is also pretty cool.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a generalized question about stealth. Are we going to need to revisit stealth
Right.
now that we've made the survival tray change? And the answer is probably we will have to look at it some.
I mean, we'll look at it.
I've always wanted to go back and put in the bounty hunter stealth kind of minigame, similar to what we had in Shadowbane.
tracking
and we
stuff,
just
right.
haven't had time to get to it yet. So I don't. That's not exactly the question was asked, which is the question specifically said, are you going to revisit it because of survival tray?
Right.
And the answer is I don't know if that's the reason, but I kind of intend for us to revisit it at some point.
Specifically, they were aiming at they're losing the ability to at will go into survival and then go into stealth.
Right.
Now they're either going to have to wait for 10 seconds to not get hit by another player to get into stealth, or they're going to have to use their ultimate power to vanish to go into stealth.
Okay.
Which means that it's now a little more strategic, and you have to be much more aware of who hit me. Is there somebody nearby that could put me back in combat? Right. So it's more situational awareness is required to actually get back into stealth if you've jumped somebody.
So immediately, if I'm a stealth person, I'm like, well, that sounds harder, and therefore it's lame, therefore it sucks. Your new design is terrible. So let me just say that we'll try it and we'll play it, and if it is terrible, then we will fix it. But at the same time, it has to be balanced with everything else, right? At the end of the day, I don't want the game to be nothing but,
Invisible people as you
roaming
can't see.
packs of stealth Ganetians. While that is kind of awesome and hilarious, there's more to the game than that.
That go for broke video is always amusing, isn't it?
It's really funny.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll look at it if it's a problem.
Okay.
And now, please share some of the updated racial passive sets. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you a sneak peek of the half-elf.
Okay.
The half-elf is always amusing because for years, the half-elf has been kind of on the underpowered from the passive level side.
So of course the answer is not to tap it back into place, but to swing the pendulum and make it the only meta worth playing.
Correct. In
Okay.
fact,
yeah, got it. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on the way this works, right? So
I've been working with
this
Todd
is
long
not
enough
our
now that
first
he can just
rodeo.
read that I said that without me even saying
Yeah,
it.
we know that the answer, of course, is to wreck the game in the opposite direction by tackling the problem with like 5 different solutions.
Right.
Yeah. Any one of which would have been fine. Okay, what you got?
What you got for us, Emily?
I do like that that concept, by the way.
Yeah.
Is that a new one? Because I actually don't recall seeing this concept before.
I don't know where it is. I haven't seen that building either.
The destroyed building. I have seen the building, actually. I've seen the destructed assets in game, but I have not seen this concept that led to
It's
that.
the blue roof that's throwing me. I'm not sure I've seen the blue roof.
We actually have those too. We actually have the roofs. The
Roofs.
The roofs.
Okay, so it looks like some magic is happening
Here we
behind us,
are.
which is great. So here you are looking at your new updated powers. And on the left,
By the way, let's pause real quick because some people, surprising though it may be, don't turn into every single live stream we do. So this is the new spell book, right? So this is our new power loadout. It's actually very, very simple. You've got your ults right there on the right side, your left and right mouse. You've got your available tray powers. You've got melee and ranged. If you had stealth, you'd have stealth as another tab. We moved the passives from being something that you load out to over on the left because they are now always active.
And so last month someone had a question because that used to just say passives. The question was, hey, where do I load these things out?
Yep.
So
and
we put the word active in there.
because the answer is you don't have to anymore.
So thank you for that little bit of nudge right there, because again, based off of your feedback, we're always listening and making changes.
Yep.
And just one word can actually clarify something. So you just look at it and go, oh, they're always active. Great. Don't need to talk about that ever
now I
again.
do have a question that Yumix had asked a little bit ago, but we're up to that topic now. And he said, how will passives work for druids? Will they be forced to have slow growth / native passives, or can you disable passives?
So what we've done is that particular one, slow growth, and I can't remember what the opposing one is. There's basically one that speeds up their essence gain and one that slows down their essence gain.
yeah, seems bad to have those both active at the same time.
It
That's
does.
a valid point.
They are they got 2 nodes in the skill tree that are 0 cost skill nodes, because we can do that now, and they can pick which one they want. So it's basically they're buying, I'm a character that regenerates essence fast.
You mean in the talent tree?
I'm sorry, in the talent tree.
Because in the passive tree, that would suck.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
In the talent
It's in the
tree.
talent tree.
Yep.
So in the talent tree, right after you get granted your promotion class, there's 2 branching nodes, and one is faster and one is slower, and you buy one, and it's exclusive with the other one. You can't have both.
Okay.
So we have the tech to make nodes mutually exclusive. It says you can only pick one of these, and it's free. So we've solved that problem
Cool.
for the druid.
We'll try it. We'll see how that works.
Yeah. I was actually really happy when we got the 0 cost nodes, because it let me do things like that.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the very first half-elf passive is called Lay of the Land, and it increases their mining statistic by 15. So everything that used to just be a raw stat on the racial discipline tree has been moved into a passive. Because it let us say, okay, every class gets between 4 or 5 passives, and they're kind of at this power level. Some classes get a harvesting one, some classes get a crafting one, and a couple of combat ones. So there you go. So that will be, not everybody will get 1 harvesting one crafting one, 2 combat. We didn't do it like that. It is far more what seemed to fit for the class. Or the race. I'm sorry, this is the race in this case. Okay, so let's go to the next one, please. This one's pretty plain Jane, but okay, this is probably the one that I'm worried about the most that I put in, which is called Past Lives. It grants and unlocks a minor discipline slot, which means that
That seems powerful.
half-elves can have a 4th minor discipline, which completely opens up a whole bunch of different builds.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people are going to be, well, you can do this if you've got, for example, if you're a Nathari, well, you have 1 less minor discipline slot. So Past Lives is the one that I'm a little worried about, but I want to let it ride. And again, our goal with the races was just to make them feel so different and make lots of choices.
Yeah.
Right? I love hearing when people are debating what they should play. Right? I mean, listening to you and your friends talk about D&D stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
It's endlessly fascinating.
Well, that's how we know when everybody agrees that something is terrible, we know it's terrible. When everybody disagrees on what thing is terrible, then we're getting close. That's just because, it's MMOs. I'd have no expectation that everyone's going to agree on anything. But if they can disagree in a way that seems, nice and balanced,
Yeah.
then we're getting close.
Okay, next slide, please, Emily.
Coolster wants to know, how do you slot active powers?
Your tray is right underneath there. So you just drag from the available tray powers section to your tray. And if you want to drag it to a ranged or stealth tray, you can click that button and that tray will automatically...
Yeah, there's a UI element at the bottom here that's not being shown because it wasn't really part of this question. But yeah, your power tray is right below, so you just drag them down.
Yeah, super easy.
It has been shown in an earlier...
It has
Yeah.
been shown in an earlier
Dev
Q&A.
Diary
Yep.
just recently.
Yeah, I think it was Dev Diary 1, wasn't it? Was the power loadout? Okay. So we have that up on the website if you'd like to see how that works. Next slide, please, Emily. Oh, you skipped Trailblazer and went straight to Wildkin's Retort.
Well, let's do that one then.
Oh.
One. All right.
We're already there. Okay, so Trailblazer, this is, you're all familiar with this. Basically, when you're out of combat, you get a 15% movement speed after you pathfind a trail. It automatically happens, and you just move 15%, run faster. Right? There you go.
Yep.
And when you go to combat, it drops. So if someone tags you, that will pull you into combat with an arrow shot or whatever. That will slow you down. Okay. And Wildkin's Retort. Heals 6% of your maximum health every second for 4 seconds whenever you are the victim of a knockdown, stun, root, or snare. So basically, anytime you're crowd controlled, you are going to get a 6% heal every second for 4 seconds.
That's interesting.
It's Also, Wildkins, I kind of nod back to Shadowbane because the half elves had a couple
I
of things
just
called
love
Wildkins.
that name. Like I would name that. I would name a punk band.
The Wildkins Retort.
Wildkins Retort.
It was probably 2 a.m. when I thought of the name, so I was like, all right, well, a Wildkin, that sounds great.
Right.
But yeah, that is that one. We'll see how that one plays out because it is kind of powerful. It basically means, hey, if you're going up against a half elf, don't use as much CC on them because you're going to be feeding them life.
Yeah.
Right, which is great because it's a gameplay style changer, right? I mean, which is again what we're trying to accomplish with all these. And you'll see the whistle in their tray, or I'm sorry, in their available tray powers, which everyone gets for the caravans right now. That little whistle in the upper left there.
Uh-huh.
And then the power next to it, Emily, please, is called Bandit's Armor. Protects you with a barrier preventing up to 1,000 piercing damage or 500 damage to other types for 15 seconds. So they have a racial barrier buff, which is great. They can throw up a little shield. Bandit, again, referencing that the half-elves are kind of these outcasts, and they generally go into bandit clans because that's their people.
Cool.
So, and ideally, all of the races packages ended up this good. I think they did.
So how much did you go back and change of the other racial packages?
The half-elf got the most, but everybody got at least 1 to 2 new ones.
Okay.
Because I was trying to fill it up so there was at least 4 or 5 passives.
Yeah.
And like the Fae ended up with 5 because 2 of their passives are double jump and glide.
Yeah, flight related.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, we have to... the Fae is just so powerful because of that double jump and glide. It's like we had to count it against them a little bit. Right.
Okay, so there are a lot of concerns that half elves are now going to be overpowered.
I
just
told
wanna-
you they were going to be overpowered. It's not just a concern.
Well, also, this is one race that
Yes,
you
I mean,
showed a little preview.
I was
It's an amuse.
obviously I was kidding. Is our goal was not to make it overpowered, but we will have to look at it. Of course, it is very common in design to overcompensate for, hey, this thing is underpowered.
Yeah,
we may have pushed
absolutely.
it a little too far. If so, we'll push it back. So we'll take a look at it. You know, and you guys, I have a feeling you'll give us your feedback when you play it as well, and we'll.
They won't even wait till they play it.
Right,
They're
for
already
sure.
giving you their feedback.
Yeah.
They're
for
already
sure.
mentally mapping it to the game that they're playing.
Yeah.
When this is actually for the thing that we're playing.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And
So
that's-
the field is far more even. So if you were to just take that right there and drop it into the current game, they're clearly going to be way overpowered.
Yeah.
But in relation to everybody else in 5.1.10, thought they felt good.
Balthan asked, are there changes coming to how durability is lost? I know we talked about durability just a little bit, but are there any
Do you have
other
any
changes?
big changes?
I
coming
have
to
not
it?
touched the numbers, so we're going to have to see in 5.1.10, is gear blowing up too fast or too slow?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much, it's a too fast or too slow problem.
Yeah.
And once I know if it's going too fast or too slow and for whom, like if you never die and your gear lasts an entire campaign, I may need to...
So, well, okay, so there's another question that ties into this, right? Because it's not really just about the piece of equipment that I'm wearing on my head right now. It's also the replacement time to get another
Right.
equal or better piece of equipment to put on my head in the future. So that is completely changed in this next version, right? Because there are so many now. We already had loot drops, right? Now we've also got caravans,
Yep.
and caravans have refineries, which means so there's so many things that are changed in terms of the
Right.
flow of
The
equipment.
the input scout
that
jack
the-
way
yeah,
up.
so that could absolutely have a giant impact. So the answer could be they do break way too quickly. However, we're giving out 4 times as much gear, and it's so easy to come by now
Right.
that you just don't care. So we're going to have to try. It's not as easy as just too fast or too slow when you look at it in the totality of the overall game, right?
Yeah, there is
So
it's algebra.
There's
instead of-
other knobs that we can turn as well. So
Now, will durability be added to vessels?
No. We're not.
No.
We're never making characters.
Here you go. Tara was asking a
Yeah, we're never making your characters decay. That is going to be you're going to replace it because you want to play a different character, or you got an upgraded quality one with better attributes that you want to use. So we're not making those decay in any way.
Can I ask one more question about mounts? I know I'm like stuck on mounts, but it came up in the thread. So with respect to Kickstarter mount figurines, do those mounts take durability hit? Can you explain how that works?
I'm going to hold off on it, actually.
Okay.
I want to hold off on mounts. So mounts, the feature, like the code, right? We've got a lot of that in at this point, though we had to adapt it over to the new systems. Mounts, the cosmetics, is actually still not in this build.
Okay.
It's coming before launch, which means that I don't want to talk about it now. I'd rather
we
concentrate on the
really
current
don't
build.
know, and it's
Yeah,
still
well,
in
and there's still a few things that are in flight. So some of the things that actually didn't go into 110, I mean, generally speaking, right, we're always trying to shove like 50 pounds worth of stuff into a 30-pound suitcase. Like that's always the case for every build. In a few of the instances this time in deciding what goes in and what goes out, there were things that I thought we would be better, design questions that we'd be better suited to answer after this build came out. And so mounts is one of those where I thought, okay, so as a feature, are there changes coming, like the big survival change tray that we're doing, that whole swap? Are there things that we're going to want to feel and go, oh, I know how this feels now, that could impact that design? And if the answer is yes, then it was more likely to make it onto the we'll do it next list. So so there you go. I will come back with an answer on it. I just don't really want to cover it right now, especially since I don't like to get people upset about things that just ultimately change anyway. So.
Unless they work for him.
Oh, I don't care about getting you guys upset. I don't care about that.
Okay, last question.
Just kidding. I love my team. Almost all of them. Most of them are great.
Don't start
Except
your car.
Jack's the worst. Okay, Amaranth has asked, which Unity version will Crowfall use? And that kind of parlays into what we're doing about performance improvement.
Yeah, so there
Which is always an
are
ongoing
some performance improvements, server and client, coming in this build, but the real optimization is going to be next. I mean, that's just and while I know people are like, well, but you've got a bunch of people coming into play and that's bad. It is bad, but it's also the way development works. Optimization before you've finalized and locked everything is largely wasted effort, because then you come in, you make a bunch of changes, and you have to re-optimize. And so the quickest thing we can do is get everything done and then optimize and then launch. So we've done it some incrementally, but there will be more coming.
And we have done a Unity upgrade with almost
Oh,
every
we have,
single
yeah.
month.
Are we at .2 or .3 right now?
We are at .2. I
Okay.
want to say 2, whatever.
.3 then is coming in the next one.
That would be in the next one.
And that's their optimization, right? That's the core Unity optimization. We also then have our optimizations as well, which comes in things like, you know, as you guys could probably tell looking at like some of the war stories, like we haven't solved the issue yet of particle spam, like just overload of particles. We need to come back and deal with some of that stuff, which will also make the game look a lot better. So, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I do need to call it because I have to get to a lunch interview. Very excited. I think this job's going to work out great for me. I think this organization, I got them snowed. They're totally
This is
excited.
not a good week to make
I'm
that.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. We got good stuff coming, guys. So thank you for being patient with us as we move forward. As you can tell, now that the funding is all behind us and announced and stuff like that, we're in push this thing to launch mode. So very, very exciting to get all these last pieces in place and get this in front of you. So it's a different game, frankly. The one that's coming is a different game, built on the bones of the last one. So we feasted on the bones of the last one, and we made a
Just like
new
the
feast
crows
for
we
you.
are.
Yeah, we are crows after all, right? So.
Cool. All right, so we will see you next month. Keep the questions coming, and we will see you guys in game. Cool? All right, thanks.
Cash rules everything around me. Green, get the money. Dollar bill.